Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Ray Rossini, and this is Matt Topper, and we are the hosts of MSP Community Live. How you doing, my friend?
What's going on, Ray? Happy to not be traveling and actually be on the show. I feel like it's been, what, 2 months?
It's been a crazy nonstop travel show, travel schedule. So yes, I'm very happy to be home. Um, and this is actually the last MSP Media Network show of the year. So as we're letting
No
everybody know on all the
pressure.
shows, yeah, no pressure. But we're taking a 3 year or 3 year, three excuse me, 3 week hiatus. Yeah, live for the win. We're taking a 3 week hiatus. We will come back the second week of January. So get a little family time for all the MMN staff and definitely the MMN hosts and all you guys watching. Don't watch us. Go watch. Go hang out with your family. And when you get tired of that, we have clip shows and year-end reviews and all the other videos still going on. So,
You
what
can
about
leave
you,
the
man?
appointment on your calendar and get some work done between 11 and 12
Oh,
Eastern time.
that's true. Yeah, it's there you go.
I always like that move.
Yeah. Actually, seriously speaking, we had this exact conversation in Tech Degenerates, but I like to book at least one webinar a day. Whether I watch the webinar is irrelevant, but it gives me space in my calendar, so I can have me time to get my own work
Yeah.
done. You know. So, what about you, dude? What are you doing for the holidays?
Well, so we are hosting Christmas this year for once. Normally, I have to travel like all around New York and all different places. So we're having it here. My wife is cooking. If I was cooking, we'd be ordering like DoorDash or pizza or something. So much preferred her doing it. And it's going to be nice to like wake up and not have to get in the car. That's our thing. So we're just
Yeah.
excited. The cats have not destroyed the Christmas tree yet. We thought they would, but it is still standing. And that's it. We're just happy to have a home Christmas this year. How about you?
We are staying home. We're going to my cousin's house. We're Cuban, so we celebrate Noche Buena. We're going to his house on the 24th, and then with family, do dinner, whatever. On the 25th, we're going to go, we'll hit my mother-in-law's house and hang out with them, do breakfast. We do every year. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And staying home, I think, for New Year's Eve. Um, not going anywhere. But my daughter is actually going out of town. She's going to Puerto Rico and then Mexico or vice versa. So
Okay,
um,
that sounds fun.
it does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's living the life. I mean, that's what a 24-year-old does, right? Go have a blast. So I'm happy for her.
I don't do anything for New Year's anymore. Like I stay in and like order Chinese food or something and watch the Times Square ball
Yeah.
drop and then I'm good.
I don't know about you, but like I used to DJ. So I spent a solid 10 years every New Year's, like working. So at some point, you get tired of that. So I'm completely like, it's rare to see me go to a club. It's rare to see me like go out
Yeah.
for New Year's Eve. I'm so over it. Um, I'm definitely loving the home life. So,
Spent a few New Year's Eves installing patches on like some emergency SQL issue that
oh
came out. Like
yeah,
sitting there by the PC with the champagne in hand. Just you have to watch out for drunk adminning, right? You can only do that
yeah.
up to a point.
Do that one keystroke, suddenly you have the entire hard drive erased, or the BitLocker, the key got removed. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, I mean, after the DJing, I worked for the police department, and we were still working every New Year's Eve and New Year's. It was like, so yeah, so I very
I'm
much
sure. I
value
bet that
being
was
home.
a busy night.
Very busy night. People do not know how to act. So yeah, that's not fun. But speaking of people who don't know how to act, we have our lovely MSPs. We have our MSP. I figured that's the best segue I could possibly get into.
That's good.
Um,
Sometimes don't know how to act.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Not the
oh,
ones who watch this show though, because they
no,
know
of
how to
course
act
not.
now.
Yeah, yeah, nothing but professional. We are absolutely professional in New Orleans. Um, so one of the things I love is this whole Reddit recap, and we'll do Matt's too, but this is the RMSP Reddit recap. So 2 million people visited, 717,000 votes. I'd love to see how many were upvoted versus downvoted.
I know. I bet they were all downvotes.
Right. Top three posts, Kaseya cuts benefits for employees. Top three comments. Yeah, I remember this story. That was fun.
Yeah.
The most active countries: U.S., Canada, UK. Not a surprise there. Uh, 153,000 posts. Not bad. I'd love to be able to like separate it by shit posts and like real posts. Um,
We might not wanna see that. We might lose, audience if they see there were only, like, 10 real posts.
yeah, exactly. There was 153,000 posted. We allowed 4 posts the entire year. Um, that probably wouldn't work too well, but what should we call it? What about your year-end recap? How did that work out?
So for my Reddit recap, I
Yeah.
didn't even do it. Um,
Okay.
do you know why? Because I'm only on old Reddit. You don't see it on that.
Okay.
I would bet though, if you search my post history, MSP, NFL, and New York Mets are the Reddits I post in all the time. Mostly, mostly answering comments. I don't post too much on
Same.
those ones. Although NFL, even unless you're posting a tweet, it usually gets deleted. Um, Mets
Yeah.
player news, Jets just complaining about Aaron Rodgers, same kind of stuff. And I sent you the
Mhm.
my post of the year. Now, to be fair, I did not go through all 153,000 posts. I sorted by top comment over the past 12 months and picked my favorite one from the first like 3 pages or so.
All right.
So
And that
maybe
is
there was some post that didn't go well that
and that's this one?
yes, I thought this was a
Okay.
awesome thing to point out.
I love this. Let me see if I can zoom in so it's a little more clear.
Yeah.
Um, this is why you don't use old Reddit. I know why you and Andrew use old Reddit. I can't get into it. Um, just dark mode, man. I can't do anyway. So you want to read the post? I mean, it was your top post of the year.
Yeah, yeah. So the word no can save everyone a lot of time. And I won't, read the entire wall of text to you, but it's pointing out that, especially if you're talking to a vendor or someone in sales, they're used to hearing no, being direct, saying the word no, saying you're not interested in the demo, you have to cancel the appointment. You thought it might have been a fit, but it looks like you're not interested. Just say no. Jimmy, you're not wrong. um, we are all used to it, right? And for MSPs too, right? If you're a client who has an MSP or a client who works with you, say no, man. Like just be direct and nobody's going to get their feelings hurt, especially those of us who have spent any time in sales. A direct and firm and final no is so much better than, oh, we'll think about it, or, taking meetings when you're pretty sure you know the outcome already. And this extends to us as techs as well, right? Like if you are asked to do something and you know you can't get to it, um, saying I can't get to it is much more effective than yeah, I'll do it and then failing. Um, we have a hard time with that, like as Texas engineers
We
sometimes,
want to
like setting
overpromise,
expectations.
and that's like,
Yeah,
and I Lord knows I've done that myself. I am 100% in agreement with you. It's such a powerful word to say no. But we've all done that. We've all like committed to something where inside our heads we're screaming, "Don't do it. We're too busy. There's no way we can do it." But you feel bad, and you
you
say
do,
yes.
you do.
And it almost always ends up like blowing up in your face. I mean, it's like universal. Doesn't
We're
stop
all like,
anything, but
right? We're all trying to be too nice, and we're all professionals, right? Like just set clear, proper expectations.
exactly. I don't think I'd love to see this more in the MSP space. The number of Reddit posts. See, now I'm going to favorite this because the number of Reddit posts I see where people are saying, "Oh, my client did this, my client did that," and I'm like, I'm just going to post this post. I'm going to be like, "Here's the link. This is the answer to your problem."
Right? Did you
And
tell them to stop doing that, or did you just, say okay and come complain about it on Reddit later?
So, I mean, he's a dear friend of both of us, so he won't mind being called out. Jason Slagle in the MSP vendor Slack was raging this week, as he tends to do. It's one of the things we all love about him. But he was raging this week about vendors and some of the marketing practices. Um, he was talking about the amount of time that it takes to create an email rule, to block it, to email HubSpot abuse, and blah blah. And I'm like, have you tried talking to them? Because I got to imagine hitting that unsubscribe button is far faster than any of that stuff. Or emailing them saying, I'm not interested. Can you please take me off your list? I've personally never had one of those where it was a person emailing me and they didn't agree to do what I asked. Like almost always, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, Loan officers are different. They're fucking horrible. But that's a different conversation for another day. Um,
And I don't
so
know about you, I like the mythical unsubscribe button that's like a, link to a malware site has not hit me yet. Like
I've yet to
the
see it.
marketing emails I get have legit unsubscribe buttons on them.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all at this point pretty adept at like just hovering over and looking for a MailChimp or a constant contact. If it's
Yeah,
some random one,
exactly.
I probably am less likely to click, but I'll sandbox it or something. But almost always, it's one of like the top five. It's, nobody's creative. Um, but yeah, dude, I agree with you 100%. All right, let's see what we have here in the good old RMSP. Let's look at the chat real quick. Uh, we got
One day we're gonna find someone like live who posted something that we should delete.
right. Be like, I mean, we've moderated on camera before. Um, I've tried to say that from the vendor side. Like, be upfront. If you can't help an MSP, don't wait 2 meetings to tell them. Like, I agree with you 100%, Kate. Like, I don't on the vendor side. This is equally great advice, 100%. Um, Matt Fox, unsubscribe buttons aren't supposed to renew my car's warranty. I mean, sometimes. All right, let's see here. FTC investigating Adobe over its rules for canceling software. Fuck Adobe. I honestly have no interest in talking about them unless you do. Um,
I mean, I think the subject says it all.
yeah, Adobe is still doing bad things. Surprise, surprise. If your client went behind you for 365, let's see what this is. If your client went behind you with out your back without notice and purchased 365 without your knowledge while breaching conditions of your contract, expecting you to manage 365 under a new reseller, would you flip your shit? How? Like,
This is an interesting one.
I mean, did they
Like, did they
sign up
just
for
put the credit
GoDaddy
card in? Is that
email?
what they're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't imagine if the partner was already a partner, already had delegated permissions. Um, you can disable them purchasing licenses directly. I don't know if they don't have admin to the tenant. I don't know how they would transfer the tenant to somewhere else, unless we're talking about they didn't have 365 to begin with.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe they were on like Google Apps or, maybe even in-house Exchange before and
Yeah,
bought it.
but even then, an email migration, right? Like that's not a small thing.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and at minimum, the DNS side. Like I know 365 has the tools for like Cloudflare and like 30 or 40 different registrars, but you still need admin credentials for those
Yep.
registrars. So I'm trying to figure out like how the hell would this happen if the MSP was in control? And I'm not trying to victim blame here, but this just doesn't make sense to me.
Um, so my first reaction to this is like, yeah, maybe it was technically some breach of whatever agreement they had, or but it's really the trust factor. To me, this sounds like a client that isn't really interested in your advice in the first place if they're doing stuff like this. Regardless of what your agreement says, right? You make so little on M365 licenses, the revenue is not really that big of an issue.
No, yeah.
Um, it's really, is this a sign that you have a client that isn't interested in your help in the first place? Like, it's a symptom of a bad relationship to me, and more so
Yeah.
than the specific instance that's being talked about here.
If you were a betting person, do you think this is a true MSP client or this is a break fix or hourly kind of block hours maybe? Because that's what screams to me too. I can't imagine an MSP client doing this.
Yeah, this actually, the second thing you said, this sounds very much like what would happen to block hours clients or
Yeah.
co-managed
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, that too, co-managed, exactly right. Like, I could totally see that happening co-managed. Um, Actually, I have to retract my statement. That has happened to me with co-managed, not with 365, but with an AV or some nonsense like that. Once upon a time. So, um,
And
or
with
bought from an
co-managed,
ISP
it's
vendor. Okay.
right? It's just a communication failure. There's not necessarily an expectation that they'll necessarily buy everything from you and co-manage. That, I mean, depends on the relationship.
Yeah. I
Bought from an ISP vendor, okay.
yeah, that's I wonder if Josh like knows the answer or just is guessing, because that's a good guess too. I mean, I could totally see how that would happen. Well, also back to saying no. If that happens, tell them maybe they would be better served by another MSP and walk away. I'm not always rushing to fire a client, but I'm not shy against doing it either. Um,
I
like
think
everything,
overall we have to be a little quicker in firing clients. I don't know that I would immediately do it in this, but I think it would cause me to revisit and say, look, are you guys really interested in working with
yeah,
us and just have an evaluation?
yeah, exactly. Like, and that's a but how many of the things that we talk about that comes down to communication anyway, right? Like, how hard would it be to say, look, this is very much like your doctor or your attorney. This relationship requires trust. I completely understand if I've missed the mark, and tell me how I can gain that back. Otherwise, if you feel you want to go a different direction, I'll completely support it. But just like you couldn't have two primary doctors, having two MSPs in the mix is going to result in chaos. And
Yeah.
you can have a reasonable conversation with the client. Now, to that end, the number of QBR moment, 100%. Um, but to that end, the number of MSPs that I've seen that have had that conversation, not as many as I would like. Did that ever happen to you at Iconic or any of your previous where like you're like this client has to go and um, for the better of the company?
Yes, but not for this reason. It was the typical case of the one reason we would absolutely fire a client is if they were doing things like disrespecting engineers and being like
Yeah,
just abusive almost to support staff on the phone.
yeah,
We wouldn't for bad expectations. We wouldn't for something like this either. We'd have the conversation. Um, but you have to go is you were just abusive to one of our support
yeah.
clients, not just support staff, anyone really.
Yeah, anybody. Because the larger you get, and Iconic is pretty big. But the larger you get, you have different departments, right? You have your finance, your admin, your CS, whatever it is. Yeah, we're the same. Being insulting to my staff, or because I've always been very clear on what my priorities are. My priorities are my family, my company, the partners, everybody else, in that order. And so, and I'm very clear with the staff. Like I tell them too. But on the same time, that requires on the staff side, I tell them like, if you lose your shit, I don't have the ability to back you up at that point. Like
Yeah,
you have to,
exactly.
you have to keep your head on. You have to keep your chill. Um, but yeah, I mean, people being disrespectful, and it's sad, but we have a process for this because we've had to do it many times over the years. Of reach out to the individual and reach out to the POC if it has to escalate, and then have the hard conversation with the POC after the third time of this isn't working out. We can either have this employee stop responding to submitting requests with us, or we can look at separation.
Yeah,
Um, you know what I mean?
um, I do, and I think the other quicker trigger finger is when you're doing evaluation of how profitable individual clients are, and when you run into those that obviously don't really want your help, right? They're continuously chewing up support hours. They aren't willing to spend the money to fix whatever is causing that. Um, Sometimes that client has to go too, and we had a few of those. We said, "Look, you need to take our advice or go somewhere else. Like, it's just not working for either of us." That's the other case where we would let someone go or let a client go.
Yeah, yeah, and I strongly recommend talking with your staff, like asking like what are the things we're willing to accept as a team. You know what I mean? They'll make that a group conversation and 100%. All right, so we have this one. I'm bringing it up, but not because of the title reason. The title reason is just Google Fiber 1 gig versus 2 gig, Axie and MS downloads. The reason I bring this up is because talking about clients buying stuff without your knowledge, I have absolutely had clients upgrade or sign up with a new ISP, and I had no idea. That is super easy to happen.
Yep.
Um, and it sucks, but remember, these guys, your clients are getting calls all day. You have to educate them on this. The reason I bring this up, though, is not because of Google Fiber. And yes, I'm 100% jealous of this poster. Um, it's these whole I've seen this happen where you have Comcast offering 2 gigs, 5 gigs, 10 gigs. You have some of the other ones, Spectrum, and some of those also doing the same thing. And I don't know a lot of companies with a 10 gig router. Like I don't know a lot of companies with or 2.5 gig interface or a 10 gig. You know what I mean? Like they exist,
Yes, we've run
but
into that.
yeah. So it's like you get it where like the client's like, I'm paying for this, and you have no way of delivering it. And they're not going to drop 4 or 5 grand on, and I get it. You can get like USG or whatever the current version of with a 10 gig port. Um, in my experience, when a device has one 10 gig port, it doesn't have the ASICs required to process the data en masse.
Yes.
Um,
Right, and if you're running any security services on your edge device,
yeah,
you need a big beefy device to run, gig through, like IDS or, gateway antivirus or any of those types of things.
that's the thing I love. Like, if you go, and this is something we've only had to encounter what in the last 10 years where internet speeds were getting like kind of ridiculous. But like, if you go look at, and this is universal, Cisco, Sophos, Firewall, Palo Alto, or Cisco, Sophos, Palo Alto, Meraki, you name it, they're all universal, Sonic Wall. Whatever the stated speed is, go look at the speeds that they have for IDS, IPS, next gen AV. Like once you start adding all that, um, sorry, Restream's been finicky lately. It keeps kicking us off, so sorry about that, guys. But once you start adding all that stuff up, it drops your throughput by like half, by three
Yeah.
quarters. It's a huge thing. So um, and when you're processing 10 gigs, 40 gigs, 100 gigs, and again, I'm talking about obviously I'm talking about the carrier space, the stuff I deal with. um, it gets really, 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 really expensive. And then you got to deal with speed because all that stuff slows your stuff down.
Mhm.
um, so these are hard things to plan for. But again, it's conversations with your client, right? The easiest way to explain this to your client, I would love going to the client and say, look, you're going to have a ton of vendors, including the ones we've already signed up with, that are going to try to sell you stuff. And they're going to do it based on their view of your company, whatever you're buying from them. They don't understand the full picture, right? It's the difference between saying, take this pill because it's good for this ailment versus it may have a contraindication versus for one of your other medications, looking at the whole prescription, right? Um, and when clients understand that concept, it's a very simple, just let me know when you're considering something or something's interesting. Let's have a conversation. And it's really easy. It's really easy to do that. Um,
This is one of those cases where it's a good reminder to not make decisions for your client, right? In many cases, they might say, "Yeah, $5,000, $10,000 router. Okay, the internet speed is worth it for that." So just make sure that they're aware of the consequences of that and let
yeah.
them make the decision on that.
Yeah. Because there's no ISP that's going to call and say, yeah, we're going to sell you something you can't use. Like,
Right, right.
um, SIP scheduled tasks. I'm not going to go over this other than to say SIP just had a new release with some really cool stuff, Ninja integration and a couple other integrations. So go check out the latest SIP. I don't remember the name of it, but actually, it should probably be on the SIP website now that I think about it. Let's see what Kelvin came up with this time. It's SIP.a. Oh no, it's SIP.app. You can tell I'm not the one that maintains this for our office. Um, yeah. No, he doesn't have the current version on here, but I know for a fact that they just released it because Kelvin had just talked about it.
Yeah, I just saw
Um,
some announcement about that.
yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got. We have, and actually, good time, guys. If you're watching this last video of the year, do us a solid for the holidays. Like the video, please. It definitely helps out. And I see all of you watching because I have viewer counts, so I appreciate you. Um, U.S. Adobe distributor alternative. I've never had a good experience selling Adobe ever.
Reselling Adobe is just miserable no matter what.
Yeah. So like
Like,
even
to the
for
point where we'd sometimes say, like, "Just go buy it, it's gonna be less
yeah,
hassle."
that's exactly what we did. That's exactly how we handled it. And I hate to do that because especially like software billing, it's something we could do because we do we did vendor management, but Adobe was so miserable to work with. Um, yeah, Microsoft partner renewals. Sometimes that's a pain in the ass, especially when you have to change email addresses. Um,
Are probably yes to that
yeah,
one.
if you're posting, the answer is yes.
Like
um,
universally.
I learned a long time ago, if the price that you put on the table doesn't make you uncomfortable when you ask for it, you're probably undercharging. Um, and yeah, I kind of like that. I grew to like that excitement in sales. You never did sales for your MSP, right?
Not directly. I would be the like engineering sidekick to
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
salespeople.
I I will say that's what got my blood rushing when I sat there and I put the MSA down, and the price was like, I remember when the first time I raised prices to $40 a user. And it was like I was panicking because it was a 55 user law firm, and she had already come from another MSP. So then you have the added pressure of, I don't know what they were charging him. Obviously this was early days, and
Yeah.
what you would call it, and I was panicking, and she's like, "Oh, there's a really great price," and she signed on the spot. And now looking back, I feel like a freaking idiot. This was like 2013, 2012, and I feel like an idiot. But I also love that excitement, right? So, and that to me was just as stressful as when I would lay down an MSA at $300 a user. Like it was the same pressure. I loved it. Um,
I I sold projects and it's different in that like look, this is what it's going to cost and if you don't want to pay it, so be it. I have other stuff to do.
yeah,
It's very
yeah.
easy.
I love projects. Projects are maybe a little more on the sales side pressured, only because like once you convince the client MSP cost per user is going to be this is going to scale, add another 25% or 20% overhead for projects and stuff during the year for refreshes for whatever. Once you do that math up front and just reiterate it every QBR, that's easy. You're not really selling anymore, right?
Yeah.
The projects you have to show ROI. The projects, it's 50-50 whether they say yes or no, right? So you could be doing a lot of work up front for them to say no. Um, so yeah, but again, I like it. It's fun.
I don't want to say there wasn't pressure, but I had such a backlog of projects to architect and quote that like
You knew
I
there was always
priced them
another
what they were
one.
going to cost, and if
Yeah.
they balked at the price, I just moved on.
Did the salespeople feel the same?
Well, so project we didn't have project salespeople. So I
Oh,
was
okay.
responsible for P&L for the projects department, and it
Gotcha.
was just like, okay, guys, let me know when you're ready. The
Nice.
price isn't going down.
Nice. I like it. All right. Let's see if we can help this guy. Let's be a little charitable by the end of the year. Um, and to be fair, I don't think we've covered any pricing questions this year. So, um, are we
All right, let me
undercharging?
read this.
Yeah. Are we undercharging? I know you want to read it out loud? Read it out loud, man.
Oh, I was just reading it to myself. I know the answer to the question is probably yes. You can probably stop the post right there. Just started working for an MSP and found out we were billing, let's say 1.5 cents. Is that it looks like cents
um.
to me, but it's probably just some foreign currency I don't recognize or that's
Oh,
coming out small on the screen.
no. He started as for an MPS, a print service provider.
Oh, managed print service. Okay. I thought he typoed MSP.
Yeah. Yeah, when I saw the 1.5 cents for black and eight and a quarter for
Okay, yeah,
color.
that makes sense. 2.8.25 for color. Service currently not making money, and one of my taxes on.
All right, I did not realize this was a frickin' copier post, and I hate copier people, so we're gonna move on from this unless
Okay,
you really
but
feel strongly
I
about
mean,
this.
we'll give a no. I don't feel strongly about it, but he answered his own question, right? Service
Yeah,
is not making money. He can't pay his tax enough. You're undercharging.
yeah. Or you're
Like
selling a
what the
product that
going
doesn't
rate
make
is
enough.
doesn't really. So
Yeah,
so this is a good thing to talk about though. What the going rate is only kind of matters, right?
right.
If if the customer is willing to pay what you're charging, then it's a fair rate, even if it's more expensive than everyone else by a big factor.
That's value-based sales, right? That's the whole point. We're not selling commodity, we're selling value, but you have to be able to pitch the value. Um,
Yeah,
I will argue managed print is very much a commodity play. The only way the bigger players do it, and I'm talking just copier companies, the only way they're able to make it profitable is the volume, right? Um, I'm not saying MSPs shouldn't do managed print. I know plenty that do. Um, I don't know any that do it as a revenue generator by itself. It's always an add-on. Um, because by itself, I don't know any MSP that does enough volume for it to make sense, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not counting the MSPs that were born out of copier companies, because that's a special kind of evil. But
Just set the print queue defaults to color and you'll be very
you'll
profitable.
be a millionaire to color and have it do everything in quadruplicate. You'll be fine. You'll be fine with a black field for the background. You'll be fine.
Yes.
Um, all right, so let's see what else we have here.
So
Okay,
our
you know
prediction was
what?
accurate.
Your prediction
They
was
they
accurate. It was 100% accurate. How to price a one-off product. I know you just talked about this a little bit, but given this was squarely in your forte, um, why don't we lend some of your expertise here? You mind reading it out for us?
Yes, I will read it out, and make no assumptions on the typos this time. By no means do I run my own MSP, nor do I work for one, but I thought everyone here might be able to give me a hand in pricing out a project I just completed for a friend of mine. Okay, so the project is already done. Sounds like built out entire office environment, Azure Gateway or Azure Gateway, load balancer, BDIs, Defender for cloud, Qualys. Oh, you don't see Qualys too much in the MSP space. Phone scanning and
Yeah.
remediation,
Well, he's not an
CAs.
MSP. He said he doesn't run an
True.
MSP,
Okay.
nor
Yep.
does he work for one. Yeah.
CA, CIS hardened images, utilization alerting, network monitoring, honey. Okay, whole nine. Took about 12 hours. Okay,
Wow.
12 hours.
I want to hire this guy. If he could do all that in 12 hours, shit.
Right. Hopefully, he's got some scripts that he's running to.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I mean, if he's using Qualys, let's go with he's probably a little more mature
Yes.
operationally than. Okay.
Don't want to hit them with a huge bill. Why not? You should be charging for whatever time it actually took.
Yep.
How does everyone think I should price it? Okay. So, um, this question I think you can just answer in the general form because like all the stuff like the specifics of all the stuff he listed are
Not
not really
relevant. Yeah,
relevant
yeah.
to this. The way that I like to do it is time that you so the final project price comes out to time that you spent architecting, writing the statement of work goes into it. Time that you spent actually doing the work, right? So the 12 hours, I think, is what he spent
Yep.
actually doing work. Um, plus a certain percentage. It'll be different depending on the client or project size for like project admin stuff, meetings, project management, that kind of thing. Um, plus whatever amount of post implementation or migration support you're including in the project, which may not be much on a net new setup like this, but in some cases can be quite significant
Yeah,
after
but
something
that's a
like an
big
email
point that's
migration.
missed often. Like it's not done when you like hand it over. You have training, you have post implementation. Like that's a
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean?
Especially if you have like so we had separate internal separate departments for project and then managed services. I think many MSPs do that. And there comes a point after the project where you need to hand the environment off back to managed services for day-to-day support. And like, so there's the question of at what point do the phone calls stop coming into the pro services team and go back to regular help desk? Or if help desk is going to take it, what percentage of the project revenue gets put into their bucket?
Hmm.
Um, it really depends on the project. It's one of those things where you probably will get it wrong in the beginning and then just go off of historical data.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all of that, like that 12-hour project, I'm guessing should probably be priced something like 20-ish hours would be my guess.
I okay, so I'm gonna approach this from the business side. I love that you're approaching it from the PM side, and the planning. And actually, Kevin, it's funny because I do this. Um, when I give estimates to that I've trained somebody else to do something that I have an expertise at, right? Um, I will often tell them my expectation at speed is for you to do it, take twice as long as it would take me to do it. I have 3 decades experience. I'm not going to hold that against them for something they just learned 20 seconds ago. Um, and that's how we've done time. And I used to have this exact argument with the salespeople. Actually, with Sean Lardo was a perfect example. And I know you'll find this so hard to believe, but I would have this argument with Sean where we talk about. He'd say, "Well, there's always stuff that comes up, and you can't, you have no idea it's going to come up. You can't plan for that." And I'm like, "No, as an engineer, you plan for the unknown. You build
You
buffers."
totally can.
Yeah. And that is the difference between sales and engineering. That that right there. I hate to like make it so simplistic, but that's in my opinion, that's what it is. Um, the thing that screams to me, like that drives me freaking nuts, and maybe you can answer this for me. And I think this is one of those areas you may have been just as much of a hard ass as me, but I never worked a project before I had an agreed upon price.
Nope.
Like, and then extend that, we had an agreed upon price, we had a percentage of potential overlap or overcharging, a scope creep, whatever. We had 20% buffer, so the client
Yeah.
knew if it's a $10,000 project, it may end up being up to 12,000. We're pre-agreed to that. If it goes beyond that, we won't do anything. Client's good. And that to me upfront solved 100%, well, 90% of the challenges. um, there was some additional color here that I think bears discussion, it bears inclusion before we weigh in on it. Um, he talks about it. It strikes me now where he did this project for a friend, and the friend's business is not big enough yet. So he's trying to be fair, but he doesn't want to gouge his friend. It does add a little bit of complexity to it, for sure. Restream does not like you
It
today,
doesn't
Matt.
like me today. I guess it thought I was gonna say something dumb, apparently.
It's like you're wrong. No, it was doing it to me yesterday on MSP Dispatch. So, what you call it? But yeah, so like the thing that pisses me off about this: why are you doing any kind of work without discussing it, especially if you think your friend could possibly not afford it? You rolled out
Yes.
Qualis for a client that could they can't afford a project. Are you eating the cost? Are you like you get what I'm saying? Like
That's not a cheap tool.
it's not a cheap tool, and none of this work was cheap. Like, you know what I mean? Now, you like you said, using CIS hardened images sounds like you already had that in place. Um, so maybe this is a security engineer or somebody that does this for a living. It's like, I can bang this out, not a big deal. Um, and we've all done friends and family some stuff, but good lord, man, don't do work without discussing in advance. Even if it's, hey, you owe me a pizza and a beer, like discuss it in advance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have and there's always that risk doing friend work, right? Like, if you're
Yeah,
doing friend work, then okay, you're gonna take a bath on this profitability and be okay with that.
yeah.
Um,
And you will absolutely expect to be for the rest of your life post implementation support. So
yes. Um, to your point, so 99% of the time, projects were just fixed fee, right?
mhm,
And that was all agreed upon. And I would usually, it was rare for me to issue change orders. It would be like have to be a really big thing. It's not worth fighting over a couple
yeah,
extra hours. Um, we had one specific client though who wanted to do every single project T&M. I said, oh, okay. I really didn't like doing that. Like, I know it worked out
yeah,
okay profitably, but you ended up just dragging on for hours and hours and weeks because of that, right? Because
yeah.
it was no big deal for them to add things to the end. It
Of
tied up
course.
my guys forever. I really didn't like it from that
The never
perspective.
ending projects would drive me nuts. I I would hate it. Like, especially because there are legitimately some projects that are 3 months, 6 months. Um,
Yeah,
Lord knows here we have 12-month, 24-month projects just because some of the infrastructure changes. So that's bad enough. But then when you have a 3 month project that goes six because it just keeps extending and extending. Oh my God, it drives me nuts.
yeah. I didn't do it often, but like from a profitability standpoint, it was fine. But it really tied us up doing things that really should have been like day to day work by the end. He just wanted to work with my team for some reason.
What all right, so I have this last question. I think this will be the last question of the year for us. I like it because I want to make sure we're making money for the MSP. Well, I want MSPs to be more profitable in 24 than they were in 23. Um, so let's see here. Um, does dollar per user tend to increase or decrease as the size of the client increases? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I'd like to. I see we have a theme here, but I'd like to make sure I'm not just hearing the things I agree with. Smart person. I know pricing has lots of variables. Just generally speaking, thanks for the help. Maybe more clear, would price per user tend to be higher for a 10-person client versus 100 versus 1,000? same industry. Thanks. Um, you and I both have had big clients. What's your thought
So
on
I think
this?
the answer is kind of like from a pure math perspective, it might actually be bigger on small clients because you have some minimum you have to hit for every client. But as organizations or as clients get bigger, they get more complex. They have more things that you have to support. They have more remote users. They have more things that can go wrong. Um, so it tends to go up, even though I could see reasons that might go down from like a scaling capacity. You just end up with more stuff you have to deal with, and often you need different or bigger teams to deal with it, or more expensive resources to
Yeah,
deal with it.
yeah.
So
Bigger the
up, except
company,
for looking at the
more.
pure math of it, maybe like your 10-person client has a bigger one.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I We had minimum, so we were 185 a user base with the 10 user minimum. And so lowest client we would have would be 1850, and I did it on purpose so I could afford to put in a firewall that I wanted, my own BDR, blah blah. And then we hased whatever else if it was on premises. Um and so it was fine. And I absolutely had some 5-person clients that were paying the full 1850 because that's what I needed to get the job done. Um
Hmm.
as you get bigger, though, like you said, like a 10-person company is going to have one, if any, departments, right? A 200-person company is going to have multiple departments. Each department is going to have their own set of applications they need for new users, own set of requirements, own set of requirements for supporting them because they're going to have their own LOBs. Um, they get much more and more and more complex. So yeah, and your cost per user, what your 365 costs are not going to go down. Um, you know what I mean? Some of your software that's going to scale, the pennies it's going to scale for is not going to make up for the complexity. That's why I like that whole figure out your price per user, add 20%. That's your IT budget. And that's
Hmm.
scalable. That's easy math for any CFO. Um, let's see what Kate said. Kate says, you have to have a start and end on projects. The task to audit after how much ran over. If it's 3 to 6 and that happens more than once, it needs to go 6 months as standard. I agree, 100%.
That's a good point, right? In your statement of work, have a project closing criteria section that actually lists out when it's done.
Yeah, and please multiple milestones with dates, because that way you know when you're off track, like early, not at the end mark. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
agreed.
It's like, oh, we're 6 months in and we're due today. Shit, we're not going to make it. And I'm not going to say projects have scope creep. It happens. But you also have to be judicious about when the extra stuff is a separate project, right? Like, I don't see any harm in that. This was something that came up shortly. Kevin says this is something that came up shortly before I left my MSP. Built a serverless cost structure for the super small clients. Margins were nice on them. Only sacrificed a few tools. I could see that. I could see building a different cookie cutter for different size clients. I could
It
see
really
that.
depends on like
Yeah.
I write the standard consultant answer. It depends. Like what's left out, and can the same team support it? Do you need separate resources and engineers? But I could see that too. Different. I don't know. Many things. So many things are the same now across clients, but I certainly could see a different offering for the real tiny ones.
Yeah. And a lot of people miss milestones because their tools can't do multiple milestones or cross project dependencies. Kate has a little experience with project stuff, so if you're on LinkedIn, go click her LinkedIn profile to go see. She actually has experience in this exact space. So maybe next time we talk projects next year, we'll bring her on and ask her for her expertise. That wouldn't be a
Yeah,
bad
that'd be
idea.
cool.
All right, dude. This is a nice. We answered more questions than you, or more posts than usual. Usually we do 2 or 3, and I think we got to what, 5?
Just churning right through them.
Yeah, man. That's a good win to end the year on. I like it. Um, Matt, any predictions, any final messages, anything you want to say to the MSP world before we take off?
I certainly won't make any predictions. They would all be sports related, and that would make me depressed based on my teams. No, just want to wish everyone happy holidays, happy New Year, and thank you for tuning in to watch us every week. And looking forward to seeing you next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I I was asked why I don't do predictions on MSP Dispatch, and it's because I don't like proof that I may have been wrong. So I just don't do them. Um, but I agree. I will share hopes and dreams for 24. I hope MFA is ubiquitous. I hope per user prices go up, and I hope clients never. Or I hope MSPs don't have to deal with any malware next year. Lofty goals, but I'll take it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out this year with MSP Community Live and all the other amendment shows. If you so like, if you haven't done it yet, shame on you. Like the videos and subscribe so you can see us in 3 weeks when we come back with more education, thoughts, insights, and a little bit of shenanigans. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourselves and each other.